Welcome to the deep dive. In this deep dive, we're really digging into a stack of sources related to the original version of Robert A. Heinlein's, well, truly iconic science fiction novel, Stranger in a Strange Land.
That's right. We've got excerpts from the original text itself, plus some, pretty insightful critical commentary, even some notes from an automated analysis system.
Okay, so our mission today is to unpack the core ideas, the really surprising details, and the character insights that are in this material. We're focusing specifically on the early life and the huge impact of Valentine Michael Smith, the man from Mars, and the people who get caught up in his story based only on what these sources tell us.
Yeah, well, look at his, bizarre arrival on Earth, his unique abilities, that Martian perspective he has, his key relationships, and the sort of political and social drama his existence kicks off. It's all laid out in these documents.
And it apparently started years before the book, just an idea jotted down, an infant raised by aliens. Let's get into it. So, Mike's journey back to Earth. The sources say it was on the Champion. What was his condition like when he arrived? Sounds pretty bad.
Oh, definitely. They describe this physical fatigue, comparing it to landing on Jupiter, just really emphasizes the strain of Earth gravity after Mars. And maybe acceleration fatigue, too.
Medically, they see this atypical shock. One doctor even predicts termination. Sounds serious. But Captain Nelson, the ship's surgeon, he seems surprisingly calm.
Right. He says he's seen this half a dozen times on the trip back, says it doesn't mean a thing. Maybe he's just pragmatic, or maybe he's just seen Mike go through things that, don't fit Earth medicine.
It hints the journey itself was more than just physically stressful.
Exactly. Something Nelson saw repeatedly.
And the sources mention a specific symptom, catalepsy. How did they show that?
Nelson lifts Mike's arm, and it just stays there. The doctors call it catalepsy, but Nelson kind of waves it off, saying calling a tail a leg doesn't make it one. Basically, Earth labels don't fit.
And then there's that, let's say, colorful theory from a Marine about why Mike's kept isolated, especially from women.
Yeah, that's one of those raw details. The Marine speculates, crudely, that Mike ain't had any, he ain't seen any, and they're worried he'd kill himself. It's pure guesswork, but it shows the kind of, bizarre human ideas floating around.
But what was Mike thinking or feeling during all this? The sources give us a little glimpse inside his head.
They do. It says he knew the humans meant well, their intentions were benign, but a major part of him was just elsewhere. On his journey, they call it.
And when he comes back from that?
He deliberately speeds up his heart, his breathing. He looks around the room, this very ordinary room, with serenity, like he's seeing it for the first time. Accepts it, even commends it. It shows how profound that inner journey must have been.
His first try at walking under Earth gravity. That's described really vividly.
Oh, yeah. 3 shuffling steps, this big sunny smile, then bam, violent trembling, collapses into a fetal position.
You'd think that would worry Nelson, but no.
Still, just gravity issues, according to him.
Yeah.
He actually predicts Mike will be swinging through trees like a monkey in 3 months.
Wow. That's optimistic.
Almost absurdly so, right? Suggests Nelson really believed it was just a physical thing Mike needed to adapt to.
Okay, so while Mike's in this state, we meet some key people. First up is Nurse Jill Boardman.
Exactly. She's assigned to look after him, brings him food and water. She's really the first one trying to connect on a human level.
And he tries to communicate back with that water ritual.
Yeah, touching water to his lips, offering it. He sees it as growing closer, calls her brother, talks about his nestlings, even asks her to ask him again real prettily about being ill. It was our first real look at his, unique, almost naive way of interacting.
Jill also does something interesting with the pass key.
Right, the guards are blocking his door, so she uses a pass key for the room next door to get around them. It's a small thing, but it shows she's already willing to bend the rules for him.
Suggests she sees something more there. And the source mentions that room he's in has no windows. Adds to the isolation feel.
Definitely. And all the secrecy attracts journalist Ben Caxton. What's his angle?
He's investigating the man from Mars, smells a cover-up straight away, thinks the government wants to keep things doggo. Our AI commentary source actually backs this up, says they even showed a fake mic to the press and a fair witness.
A fair witness.
Yeah.
Those legally objective observers, right?
Yeah, common in this future, apparently. And the sources drop a bombshell about Mike's parents, too.
Oh, yeah. Probably the son of Mrs. Smith and Captain Brandt, making him, as one source puts it, the first interplanetary bastard of record.
Jill's reaction is telling, though. She thinks digging up scandal is a sniveling thing.
Shows she sees the person, not just the story. But Ben wants the truth out. He's cynical about the secrecy, especially regarding the other envoy crew members. Secrecy begets tyranny, is his line.
And there's this weird detail about a Mrs. Bankerson.
Rich old lady transferred the same night as Mike into the room next door. Jill noticed odd things about the transfer, strongly suggests it was all a cover to sneak Mike into that windowless room without anyone noticing.
So Ben tries to find Dr. Nelson, the one person who could ID Mike for real.
And finds out Nelson quit the case. Another dead end. Really points to a deliberate cover-up.
Jill dabbled in politics around this time.
Yeah, briefly. Decided it wasn't for her, went back to nursing. The source says she felt better, closer to Ben, too. Even thought about marrying him for a bit.
Then we see Secretary General Douglas on Scenario, showing someone he claims is Mike. What's going on there?
Pure spin control. Douglas shows this figure. Says he just needs to build muscle because Earth gravity's like Jupiter. Suggests Mike might visit next week. The AI source calls Douglas slimy, confirms the person shown was a phony. Just shows how deep the cover-up went early on. Things obviously couldn't stay quiet. Jill eventually takes Mike, and later Ben, to Jubal Harshaw's place. What's Jubal like?
Oh, the sources paint him as wonderfully cynical, sharp as a tack, but surprisingly welcoming. Despite his grumbling, he takes them in. He's the kind of guy who cuts through the nonsense.
And it's there, at Jubal's, that we really start to see Mike's Martian side, his abilities. What's the first big one?
Discorporation. Making things vanish. The sources say he does it to things with wrongness, like an ashtray. It just disappears when he's asked to make it go away.
And Jubal gets it immediately. He has to be really careful what he tells Mike because Mike takes everything literally. It's a huge point here.
How does Mike describe human language compared to Martian?
He finds it really hard, confusing even. Says tying shoelaces is much more hard than making an ashtray vanish. Short words are slippery, but long words are easy, unmistakable. It's just a completely different way of processing language.
Which brings us to maybe the most famous idea, grokking.
Mm-hmm.
How do the sources explain that?
It's like deep, intuitive understanding, emerging.
Yeah.
Martian language, the sources say, is built for that. Human language, with its words one after another, just doesn't quite get there in the same way.
What other Martian ideas come up?
Well, there's no concept of hurry. Correctness comes from waiting. Things like speed, velocity, they exist mathematically but not emotionally. Human rush, the sources suggest, comes from our sexual bipolarity, which Martians don't have.
Even property is different.
Yeah, viewed as undistributed joint ownership by the old ones. These Martian spirits, maybe.
Yeah.
Humans might see them as ghosts.
And his view of death, it's radically different.
Totally. Discorporation is less scary than getting told off. He'd accept falling to his death without resentment, just enjoying the fall. Fear of death is utterly beyond him. He'd even cherish it if a water brother chose it for him. It's just a fundamental difference in how they view existence.
Was he considered fully educated by Martian standards?
The sources say his education was way beyond his human nestlings, but less than an adult Martian. But the old ones, the keepers, they were interested in what this nestling alien could learn. So he grokked things no other human ever had. They didn't mock him with stuff he couldn't grasp, tailored it for him.
And that AI commentary had a good metaphor for this later.
Yeah, called the Martian perspective, like a patch for buggy human code. Martian thinking is the fix, but you need to learn the language grokking first. Powerful way to put it. Of course, you can't hide the man from Mars forever. The authorities eventually find them at Jubal's.
Right, and the sources describe a pretty tense scene. Air cars, officers. How does Jubal react?
He doesn't back down for a second. Demands warrants, credentials, cites the world code. Insists on a fair witness Cavendish to record everything legally.
Having that witness is key, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Forces the officer in charge, Major Heinrich, to state his name, rank, everything, loud and clear for the record.
Then Jubal does something unexpected.
Performs a citizen's arrest on Major Heinrich. Right there on his own lawn. It's bold, really puts the authorities on the back foot.
In the call with Secretary General Douglas, Jubal really plays hardball.
Oh, yeah. He's negotiating from strength. Demands Mike, Jill, and himself be left completely alone, free to come and go.
What's his leverage?
The threat of a massive scandal if Douglas pushes it without proper cause. He warns he'll find a champion elsewhere, basically. Go public or find other powerful allies.
And he insists on Ben Caxton being involved.
That's right. Argues it's Mike's personal privilege to choose advisors. Draws a line. If Caxton is not present, we will not be there. He even threatens to hold his own conference across the street if they're shut out.
The sources give a bit of political context, too. Douglas is juggling things.
Yeah, he's campaigning. trying to smear this missing politician, Berquist, planting fake stories about Mike being in the Andes. He's clearly under pressure, trying to manage different factions, get support from places like Pakistan.
And during the call, Jubal admits he's bluffing a bit.
He is. Covers the mic, tells the staffer Larry the transceiver's actually broken, then sends Larry off to call a network contact, Tom McKenzie, tell him this could be the biggest story since the fall of Troy, trying to get the feed working and build pressure. Classic Jubal.
And Mike's watching this from the pool.
Yeah, Jubal told him to hide there. Mike sees the guns, feels the wrongness. In the end, Jubal lets Heinrich go, calls him a fool in uniform. Douglas agrees to meet face-to-face. Really shows Jubal's quick thinking.
So as Mike starts bumping up against Earth culture, religion comes up. How does he react to a fosterite service? These fosterites seem like a big deal.
Yeah, a major religion. Mike's reaction, just confusion. I do not grok. He literally doesn't understand what they're doing.
Does he try to relate it to Martian ideas?
He does. Asks if they can ask the fosterites to ask their old ones, like the Martian spirits. Jubal has to explain that, well, human religions all claim contact, but they get different answers. Jubal even wonders cynically if maybe the fosterites do have it right in an absurd universe.
Our AI source commentary then describes Mike starting his own thing, the Church of All Worlds.
Or the nest, as the AI calls it. And it makes it clear this isn't about God or saving souls like human religions.
So what is the point of the nest then?
It's about teaching a truth you can check, according to the sources. A way to be happy by learning Martian, by grokking. The AI calls it like debugging faulty code, with Martian as the patch. You got to learn the language to fix the human bugs.
And the practices in the nest, what do the sources describe?
Communal living, this nest idea. Shared intimacy. Shedding clothes. There's a huge kitchen, library. Bedrooms are just soft floors, little nests. Big bowls of money by the entrance, apparently, with a sign, "Did you remember to dress?" They also claim people don't get sick there. No medicine bottles around. The source links it to Christian scientists, that kind of principle. The discipline improves body and soul, they say.
And that water ritual Mike used with Jill, that becomes central.
Totally. Share water is the basic way to grow closer. It's symbolic, but also very literal for them.
And the core teaching, thou art God. That's pretty direct.
It is. But the sources explain it means God is in you, part of you. You grok God, God groks you. Mutual understanding, deep down. They even adapt a fosterite tattoo, the foster's kiss, to symbolize joining the church. Mike also gets fascinated when fosterites talk about going to heaven, grokking it as discorporation to join human old ones.
Mike's view on sex also comes up, contrasting with human attitudes.
Yeah, for him, it's just a way to be happy together, joining and blending. He sees human hang-ups about sex used to hurt each other. Jubal calls the nest stuff group theogamy, a holy rite that only seems obscene because human prejudice forces it into hiding.
And there's a structure, inner and outer church.
Right, outer church, then an inner church for the leaders, the priesthood. They're the reborn, beyond sin, sure of heaven. The AI source mentions the inner temple has aspects of, like a Dionysian cult, ecstatic religion, ritual madness, a mix of calm grokking, and maybe some intense human expression.
Okay, so Mike's out in the world more now. He meets Patricia Pyewish, the snake dancer.
Yeah, a performer.
Yeah.
And he just groks her, connects with her truth and her snakes.
Yeah.
Says they remind him of home.
And this lets him handle them safely.
Exactly. Even poisonous ones, they grokked with him. He savors their innocent, merciless thoughts, the source says. Shows grokking isn't just for humans.
His confusion about human laughter is another interesting point.
It really is. He sees people laugh at wrongness, someone falling not at goodness, like pretty girls. So he figures laughter isn't for nice things. There's even this idea that apes become people when they learn to laugh. Just a completely different take on something so basic for us.
But he does develop a sense of humor himself.
He does, yeah. Though Jubal calls his taste atrocious. Practical jokes, pants falling down, shoes frozen solid. Jubal thinks it's like a delayed boyhood, part of him becoming, well, maybe more human in a strange way.
Now, here's something really surprising. His financial knowledge, despite, being raised by Martians.
It's incredible, right? He writes his own will, no lawyer, and it's brilliant. Protects his inheritance, uses half the money to guard the other half, anticipates all sorts of legal challenges. Jubal calls it one of the shrewdest legal documents he's ever seen. Totally blows up the naive image. Shows he can grasp complex human stuff when he needs to, and he hasn't even touched the money in nearly a year.
What's his general view on money and property?
Useful for now, he thinks, but due to be turned upside down and inside out, notes that disciplined people can make money easily competing against the half-awake. Even thinks ahead about teleportation messing with space travel industries.
The Nest also has a policy about free gifts.
Yeah, they don't just give stuff away freely until people reach higher circles. The idea is humans need to progress first. They can't value a free gift properly until they put in the work. Accepting is harder than giving, the sources say.
And when the innermost temple gets destroyed, what's Mike's reaction?
He's remarkably unfazed. Sees like a diary with all pages filled, time for a new one. No harm done, the source says. Just pure Martian perspective on impermanence.
His take on goodness is very short.
Goodness is not enough. Goodness is never enough.
Yeah.
Simple, but makes you think.
How is all this affecting Jill? The sources show changes in her.
Big time. She starts to grok like a Martian, stops caring about stairs, loses her ladylike prissiness, and crucially, she becomes less afraid of death, of discorporation. Mike is fundamentally shifting her worldview.
There's that scene where Mike kisses her, described very specifically.
Yes, kisses her mouth, and where Foster kissed Patty. But the source says he used stretched out time during the kiss, grokking capillaries, achieving his purpose. To others, maybe a simple kiss. But Jill feels the intense effort.
And Jill's own view of their relationship.
She feels like Mike married her way back in the hospital, ages and ages ago, before she even knew it. Wants pet names, but settles for little brother, which makes her go all quivery inside, shows this deep, complex bond.
But Mike worries about his effect on her.
Yeah, he's concerned he hasn't been good for her because she's becoming Martian, laughing less. While he hasn't learned to laugh properly, he thinks she's becoming Martian, not that he's becoming human. It's a fascinating twist. So the Nest, this discipline Mike teaches, starts to spread. How does that work?
Mike screens hundreds, finds a few dozen who are suitable, but only a very few actually come into the Nest for the really intense training.
And the goal is for those trained people to then go out and start other nests, like a snowball effect.
But it's hard work, right? Learning Martian is tough, but necessary because the truth, as they see it, can't really be said in English.
Exactly. You need people honest enough to believe what they see and willing to put in the effort. The sources mention different circles of advancement, so it's a structured path.
Who are the first call that are mentioned?
That's a specific group. People like Ben and Duke, who became water brothers before learning Martian, they learned the language later, suggest maybe a deeper initial connection first.
Jubal, ever the cynic, has his say on the Nest's lifestyle.
He calls it anarchy, communism, group marriage, compares them to early Christians. And he wonders aloud if that kind of openness and innocence can actually survive in a naughty world. A fair question, maybe.
Ben Caxton's view of Mike changes too, becomes deeper.
Yeah, he stops seeing Mike as just gentle. Thinks killing wouldn't bother him if it was necessary. Ben groks him as the ultimate anarchist, someone for whom any confinement is a wrongness against integrity. It's all about freedom of self and utter personal responsibility for self. Ben really gets Mike's way.
Creating the Martian dictionary sounds like a huge project.
Oh yeah, daily sessions with Mike, dictating tapes, phonetic transcription, typing, corrections by Mike or Jubal. Just highlights the sheer effort involved in bridging that language gap.
And Dr. Nelson reappears, the ship's surgeon.
He does. Shows up at the Nest as an extension student. Jubal notices this tingling expectancy at dinner when Nelson's there. Water gets passed around without words, showing how the practices are becoming ingrained.
Mike also has a run-in at a seminary.
Gets run out of Union Theological Seminary by theologians, some believers, some not, but all apparently united in aiding him. Jubal thought it was funny. Good for Mike. And there's a cool detail. Foster, the Fosterite archangel, confirms from heaven he can't touch Mike. Martians have their own thing. The universe has variety. Reinforces that idea of different valid paths.
But finally, the sources suggest the danger level is rising.
Definitely. Authorities start thinking Mike might still be alive after the temple incident, which Mike apparently sighed with relief about. Bishop Short's shock troops are mentioned filling the city. Seems like a big confrontation is unavoidable.
So we've journeyed through these sources, really traced the unusual story of Valentine Michael Smith, the man from Mars, and the shockwaves he sent through this future Earth.
Yeah, we've seen this character, shaped entirely by an alien world, grappling with really fundamental human things, love, death, religion, money, and often turning them completely on their head.
And we've really explored that core idea, how perspective, language, culture how they might create totally different realities,
Hmm.
all symbolized by grokking and Martian versus human thought.
So looking back at all this material we went through, what does this deep dive make you think about?
Well, it makes me wonder, does true understanding, real grokking, mean we have to somehow step outside our own ingrained ways of thinking and talking?
What does it really take to connect with someone or something that's profoundly different from us?
Right. And how might our own hang-ups, as the sources put it, be stopping us from seeing, from grokking truths that are maybe right there in front of us?
Lots to think about. Keep exploring, keep questioning.
This has been The Deep Dive.